Okay, so again, it's just another type of probability question, which, by the way, you'll see this on the test, the quiz, the test, and the final exam. All right, really, really important you guys understand what's going on here. Okay, so the probability that you'll get an A++ on this test is 0.23. So this is probably the most confusing part of the whole thing. If I said the probability you get an A++ on this test, that's like saying the probability of getting an A++ on the test. So this is alone. Or you're getting an A++ with the test and the final. Okay, so this is alone and this is with the final. So kind of two categories. It's not just probability of T. If this problem said, so let me write that. If this said if the question said, in quotes, just the test, close quotes, then only probability of T. So if I said, hey, the probability that you will get an A++ on just this test, then it would be P of T. But by me saying the probability that you get an A++ on the test means, yeah, okay, it can be in this category and the all by itself, but it could also be with the final exam. Okay, so this is actually really important that you understand that. So again, if it's just that, it would be just P of T, but this is P of T plus P of T and F, test and final. Okay, and that equals 0.23. Okay, so I'm gonna number these as well. So I'm gonna say this is number 1, this is number 2, so we can use this later, and then this is number 3. Okay, so the probability you get an A++ on this test and the final, so let me write it out, probability of the test and the final. Okay, so you're going to get both is 0.12. So notice the first one was test and then both, so this one is just both. That's why it's, of course, less probability because you're not including the probability of a test. Okay, and then the last one here is the probability that you get an A++ on at least one of these assessments. So do you guys agree that's the saying probability of a test or probability of the final or probability of a test and final? So if I add those three probabilities together, I get 0.41. Okay, so these probabilities, guys, are actually really significant. So 0.23, 0.12, and 0.41. And what you're doing is, if you look at, you got a combination with probability of T, T and F, right? And so you're going to use these values to figure out the next three questions. Okay, so let's look at the next three questions. The first one says, find the probability of not getting an A++ on either this test or the final exam. So it's saying you're not getting an A++ on anything. Do you guys agree that number 3 here that I labeled, that's saying the probability of getting something of at least one of these assessments? So the probability of getting none is 1 minus number 3, right? So remember, the probability of success is 1 minus the probability of failure. So 1 minus 3, so I can, even just writing this out, it's 1 minus the probability, so I can put this in brackets, of getting a test, A++ in the test, or a final, or both. Right? 1 minus that. So I get 1 minus 0.41 is 0.59. Right? Because if the probability of getting an A++ on at least one of them is 0.41, the probability of getting an A++ on nothing is 1 minus 0.41, which is 0.59. Okay? All right, that's pretty good. Let's look at the next question here. It says, find the probability of getting an A++ on the final exam, but not this test. So it is the probability of getting an A++ in the final. So let's go look back at our three categories here. How do I get a combination of a final? Well, do you guys agree number 3 Number 3 has here, this is it, right? This is probability of a final. And what do I need to take away from that? I need to subtract this guy right here and this guy right here. I need to subtract probability of a test and a final. Oh, look at that. Look at number 1. Probability of a test and a final. So if I take number 3 and I subtract number 1, I'll get my answer. I'll get probability of a final. All right. So again, you're just trying to get combinations to get you to your probability of a final. Okay. So again, this is going to be equal to the third one minus the first one. Okay. So let me write it out. I think it's just to have it. So it's probability of a test. This is the third one. So plus the probability of a final plus the probability of the test and final. That's category number 3, and I'm taking away category number 1, which is probability of a test or probability of a test and final, and that's going to leave us with just probability of a final left over, and it does. So putting all the numbers here, it's going to be 0.41 minus 0.23, which is going to be 0.18. Okay, it's not bad, right? And let's look at the last problem. It says find the probability of getting an A++ on only one of the 2 assessments. So really what I'm looking for is one of the 2 assessments, meaning the probability of getting a test or probability of getting an A++ on the final. So it's one of these 2. So I don't want the probability of both on here, just only on one of the assessments. So let's go back and look to see what we have here. Well, we already just figured out, we figured out probability of failure is right from here. I need to highlight that, right? Probability of failure is right here. So I'm just I can use that right there. And I need probability of getting a test. So let's go back and look at what we have. Probability of, oops, I'm going too far. Probability of a test. What can I do here? Oh, that's interesting. I can I use this guy right here minus this guy right here? Right? If I subtract those 2, can't I get the probability of a test? That's exactly what I want to do. So it's basically the first part is going to be 1 minus 2, right? So category 1 minus category 2 plus what I got in what I got from the last one I did from B. Okay, so let me write it all out here. But I hope you guys see that, right? It's this one minus it's number 1 minus 2, which is just going to give me this guy here, probability of T, plus what I just got in category B, which was my 0.18. Okay, so let me cursor back down here. All right, so P of T is going to be, again, category 1 minus category 2. Okay, so that is going to be probability of T plus probability of T and F, test and final, okay, minus category 2 was probability of T and F. Right, that's going to give us probability of T, and then plus, I'm going to add to that the probability of final, which we just figured out over here is 0.18. So this first part here is 0.23, just taking that off of what I've done already, 0.23 minus 0.12. Okay, that's the first part. And so that's the probability of T, just to do that whole thing, is going to be 0.11. Okay, that's P of T. P of T is 0.11 plus P of F, 0.18. So that's going to give us 0.29 as a final answer. Okay? So I definitely moved around here a lot and did a lot of writing and all this stuff. But guys, you're looking for combinations that give you what you need. So like I said, C is probably getting only one of them. Well, that's probably a T of getting it in a test and a final. So P of T plus P of F. And just looking for the combination and looking back at the original problem too and saying, the original information and saying, what's given here? Oh, the first one is P of T plus P of T of F, which I think is the most confusing part of it. But I explained that already. Okay, and then probably of test and final is category 2, and probably of test, final, and test and final both is category 3, and then adding and subtracting to manipulate it to give us the answers for A, B, and C. All right. So this is kind of a long lesson. It was like a 35-minute lesson, but hopefully I covered everything here, and I already have a pre-printed note sheet that you guys can. Hopefully you just kind of look so you didn't have to write all this stuff down, or maybe you wanted to, because sometimes it's better when you write it down and you see exactly what's going on. Okay? Anyway, that's it, math fans. Thank you for listening, and you have an outstanding day. Adios. Goodbye.